Good afternoon, everyone. Now meteorologists are saying that global warming is due to water vapor, not CO2. Iowa, they're asking residents to clear the record snowfall away from the fire hydrants. A look back into the record-breaking Chicago snowstorm. Final tally on the cold temperatures for Florida. Look back into the Maunder minimum here in the U.S. And if they're riding in France over a fuel tax, when there's still available supply, imagine what happens when there's a non-available supply of food and people are fighting for those resources. And YouTube at it again. They didn't like the connection between disturbances in the ionosphere and earthquakes over in Alaska. And during these uncertain times, I've teamed up with My Patriot Supply long-term food storage, a nice affordable starter kit, 2-week food supply, 1,500 calories per day, breakfast, lunch, and dinners, plus the 4-gallon storage containers included in that. This is a good first step in getting more self-sufficient. And if you click through the Prepare with ADAPT 2030 page in My Patriot Supply, you can get this starter kit for $75. Please remember there's a limit of 2 per household in this special offer. Starting off here, it is December. The holiday season is upon us. Beautiful Christmas tree. And a little bit of snow out the windows. Speaking of snowstorm, let's take a look back at Chicago, what has happened. Snowstorm dropped over a foot of snow, but you know, Chicago's always ready for these types of storms. Yet this just pounded the city. Tens of thousands without power, travelers stranded everywhere. Totals were about 140,000 residents without power. It was that heavy snow again that took down trees, that then took down power lines. 1,300 flights canceled from O'Hare and other regional airports. But please keep in mind that Chicago is one of the snowiest cities in North America. And they broke their records this time. But not only that, they're incredibly prepared for these types of snowstorms, but the disruption of services was astounding. At this early in the year, I don't even know what's going to happen coming up late December, January, February, when they usually get their highest snowfall totals. They had the earliest snowfall for 30 years recorded, and we've been told that all these heating oceans and all these things from global warming are going to cause heavier snowfalls. Well, at least now that's what they say. But if this year is only the 4th warmest on record, and all this extra snowfall is supposed to be caused by evaporating oceans and all the heat, why didn't we have all these record snowfalls a few years back when it was actually warmer during the El Nino? Why is it now that all these snow records and cold records are being broken? Oh, because we're heading into a grand solar minimum that's supposed to be amplifying and intensifying from this point. Maybe that's the answer. Now, staying in the same region here, Clinton, Iowa, just west of Chicago there on the map, wanted to point this out to you. They've had such a record-breaking snowfall that the city is asking the residents, if you have a fire hydrant near your property, can you please clear it away in case there's an emergency? And I thought, well, how much snow could there have been in this? Well, this much. There's record snowfall, Clinton, Iowa. So once I was in this Clinton Herald, I just simply put in record snowfall into the search bar, and lo and behold, record-breaking snowfall in February in the same place. And now we have record-breaking snowfall in the same year in November. And not only that, back in January, they broke their cold records. So this is a kind of amplification and increased step up that you'll see in the regional areas. And we know from Chicago to New York, Great Lakes, and all in between, especially Pennsylvania, record after record after record after record being broken and set this year. So when another climatologist steps out and says all the recent global warming was not due to CO2 but ocean cycles and water vapor, that's something. But when they also take the next step and say the Atlantic's switching to its cold phase, where the waters are going to be cooler for the next 30 to 40 years, and that also affects the European temperatures and the European weather, start to look for these things adding up into overlapping cycles. Also on No Trick Zone, they have a great rundown here of other peer-reviewed research that's not making mainstream media that also talks about other causations than CO2 for all the change you're seeing on our planet. There's more than 1,500 peer-reviewed papers in this small segment right here that I've linked below in the description box. Now, also Martin Armstrong coming out again, deep with another article on global cooling. See, now it's starting to get to the point where the economists are going to notice that rising food prices are going to crush the economy. So now the economists are chiming in going, oh, grand solar minimum means huge declines in activity economically. But then we also have all the grand solar minimum effects now reducing crop yields. So they're going hand in hand, and there's more than one industry that's going to chime in on what's happening and how it's going to affect your life and mine moving forward. Now, in Martin's article, he has this great George Washington reviewing the Ragged Army at Valley Forge stamp collection here. But the thing is, how much cooler was it back then? I mean, they were able to drag cannons and horses and wagons across areas that haven't frozen in centuries in the United States and along the East Coast. Now, jumping a few days back when I was calling weather forecasts, tropical tidbits, etc., that Florida was going to get down near freezing or break the freezing mark. I called Miami to hit the freezing point, but it did not. It was still in the 40s there, but further north from Orlando back through the Panhandle hit the mark. So I was off about 150 miles or so on that, where the actual coolest line descended through. Now, to sum this all up is the point of the video. This anger rising in France, Paris is burning absolutely at the moment. They need to call out the National Guard. They're going to be calling out the army, state of emergency. They're going to try to quash this, and it's going to get incredibly hectic over the next few days. Talk about bread and circuses. Here we go. If this much anger is coming out because of rising fuel prices and taxes on fuel, can you imagine how this is going to progress when our food supply is affected? Because right now it's fuel first, but the food is going to come and be the main catalyst to flip our societies into something that hasn't been seen in 4 centuries. Take a look at Paris, for example. The whole thing is, off Zero Hedge here, great article, Buy Bitcoin. I love this guy involved in the protest, Buy Bitcoin. But the whole thing, Macron says the fuel hikes are because necessary to combat climate change. I don't know. Everywhere you look, scientists, astrophysicists, climatologists are saying, whoa, we're heading into global cooling. We need to start thinking about how farmers are going to shift to different types of agricultural products as the climate system itself shifts. Cooler, wetter, drier, more severe winters, shorter summers. And here he is still talking, trying to push down the throat of this agenda, global warming. I can see why the citizens are fighting back and saying, whoa, it's affecting our lives too much already. Now, what happens when the food prices triple? That's where we're heading with the grand solar minimum. Talking about the connection between disturbances in the ionosphere and the earthquake happening in Alaska, and those two areas overlapping exactly at the same times in the same places on our Earth, triggering earthquakes. Talking about the electric universe, Birkeland currents, and how our star is going into a decreased activity state that's ushering in the grand solar minimum. Wikipedia article under my video. Stamp of authenticity. Every time I see one of those, it's like a badge. I should be pinning those on my shirt. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. If you'd like more information like this, 30 minutes at a time, Mini Ice Age Conversations podcast, you can take it on the go. And also jump over to oilseedcrops.org. Move your mouse around there for about 10 seconds. This box will pop up. You can enter your email, sign up for the Grand Solar Minimum Climate Update newsletter. From myself, Adapt 2030, David Dubine.